Good morning and welcome back to one of my videos. Today we are going to be talking about flower math, the woody edition. So a couple weeks ago I recorded a video about doing flower math for annuals, and today we're going to talk about woodies. So if you're curious about woody spacing, how to plant them, and how many stems are possible from a small location, and how I would set up a small new woody field, then stick around for this video. I'm Ruthann from Abundant Blooms Flower Farm in Dorr, Michigan, where I farm with my husband and our 5 children. We own 2 acres. We have about an acre in production, but a lot of that acre is woodies, young woodies, and perennials. I sell almost exclusively to florists, which is the purpose of having this YouTube channel and kind of looking at a flower farm through that lens. I also teach flower farmers how to sell flowers to florists through my course, Selling Flowers to Florists, and through an upcoming online membership community, which I'm creating called the Abundant Blooms Collective, and it's coming out very soon from when this video comes out. So if you want to know details about that, make sure you check out the link in the description below and get on my wait list or just be on my email list. And if you do that, you can also get my free guide, Tips for Selling Flowers to Florists, and you will be in the know about when that launches. Okay, we're going to dive right in here. So if you know me, if you've watched any of my videos, probably you will know that I grow quite a lot of woody and perennial plants for cut flower purposes. And I got into that in 2022 was when I first planted my first planting of woody shrubs. And I talk about that in a different video. But basically, at the end of the season, I had about $1,000 and I had to decide, how am I going to spend this? Am I going to invest into woody shrubs or buy tulip bulbs? Kind of were the two decisions. And I 1000% suggest you buy woody shrubs and forego the high risk, high investment tulip bulbs till later down the road. If you're having to choose between the two, I would choose woody shrubs over and over and over, because my woody shrubs that I spent $1,000 on are paying me back in dividends and dividends, and they're still paying me back now 4 years later. Just a very short case for buying woody shrubs or investing in them for your farm. They increase your profitability, I believe, and diversify your farm. I have so many praying mantises now. They're all over my ninebark, particularly, and my smokebush and my snowberries. And so it's really brought a diversity to my farm, which has been really, really fun and cool to see. So that's one reason. Another reason is that they give you have more diversity in your plantings and your offerings for selling however you might sell. And so you're diversifying your crop plan. And then the woody shrubs tend to be more sustainable as far as like resistant to drought or other environmental things, really hot days or cool days and different things like that. And then I also feel like they differentiate you from other flower farmers in the area, because I am personally becoming known as the farmer that has large amounts of snowberries and ninebark and smokebush and stuff like that, because I invested in this. And so I'm growing into those areas of my farm. And then not only are they buying ninebark from me, they're also buying their sunflowers and their zinnias and their cosmos and other things from me as well. Not that you have room for everything. I'm not suggesting you grow everything, but just being strategic. So I think adding woodies in just as a very small upfront here before we dive into the math, I just think that there's a lot of really good reasons for growing woodies. And Jenny Love from Love and Fresh Flowers, she always says that woodies are your retirement plan. And I really do feel that way. That's why I first planted about 160 of them in 2022. And then in 2024, I planted about 1,000 more woodies on my farm. And I've added a little bit more since then, but those were kind of my 2 big plantings. So as a way to test how woodies grow and how I wanted to grow them and how they would sell, in 2022, I planted about 160 woodies, which cost me about $1,000. I got them all from Spring Meadow Nursery here in Grand Haven, Michigan, but they ship to the United States and Canada. They are a major woody producer, huge facility. I got the opportunity to tour it a couple years ago, and I might be able to go back and tour it and bring you guys along too. I'm in the process of communicating with their marketing department, so we'll see if I can pull that off. But just a really cool facility you can buy from there, and just know they have a relatively high minimum in the spring when they're really busy, but in August that minimum drops to, I think it's 10 trays, and that's just a lot more manageable for a lot of small scale flower farmers. So if you feel like it's just out of the possibility for you because the tray minimum is so high, give your representative a call and see, because you might be surprised later in the season that minimum really does drop. And I planted mine in August, the first time I did it in 2022, because of that, because I was waiting for the minimum to drop, and it was a perfect time to plant for me in Michigan. It worked really well. You can also pick up from them, which is really lovely for me because I didn't have to pay for shipping, but they do ship. So I'm going to talk about like a sample suggestion for like a new flower farmer, or for someone new, not necessarily a new farmer, but getting into woodies. And so this is just a sample. Some of these things might not be hardy to your zone. I'm in zone 6A in Michigan in the United States, and our frost-free dates are from about May 15 until October 15. Give you an idea about our growing season. But for me, I love, you'll be totally shocked here. So we're going to talk about smokebush and ninebark, hydrangeas, symphocarpus, which is snowberries, quince. This is flowering quince, and viburnum, mock orange. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different plants here, or 7 different varieties. I mean, I could give you a whole long list, but I think if you just focus on some of these things when you're first getting started, this is going to give you some like depth into your woody, beginning of your woody program. So these 2 things are foliage in late summer and into fall. Hydrangeas, obviously you're growing for the bloom in, well, I mean, these can have very different bloom times depending on the variety that you choose. Snowberries, I love snowberries. I actually have a video about a bunch of these. I have a video about smokebush and ninebark, and then I have one about snowberries, because I love snowberries because they bloom, or they mature, the berries, you grow them for the berries, mature in the fall or like late August, September. And it's just so wonderful and helpful to have a crop that performs so well for you at that time of year when you're tired, and maybe some of your other crops have disease or pest pressure. These just have really shown up in a really wonderful, helpful breath of fresh air at that time of year. So I love snowberries. So this is also giving you a fall berry. So we've got foliage, blooms, fall berry. This is flowering quince. So they're selling thornless varieties of quince. And so this is spring flowering shrub. Viburnums, there's tons of different kinds of viburnums. Jenny Love says she's never grown a viburnum she doesn't like. You can grow them for early spring blooms. You can grow them for late fall berries, or late summer, fall berries. So you can grow them for the foliage. So there's multiple different varieties within this. And then mock orange, which I'm totally blanking on the like scientific name of it, but that's also grown for us, it blooms in June, like summer, early summer flowering shrubs as well. So you're getting blooms, berries, flowering branches, multiple different things, and then mock orange. I know y'all are going to ask me varieties, so I wrote some varieties down here. I'm not suggesting you buy all of these varieties, but these are the ones I have personally purchased. So this is the Smokebush, the Winecraft series. So this comes in a dark maroon color, which I think is called Winecraft Black, and then they have Winecraft Gold, which is a chartreuse color, both of which are beautiful. Ninebark, I think I have 6 different varieties of ninebark, but tiny wine, summer wine, ginger wine. I have a couple of varieties from Farmer Bailey as well now. Those haven't started producing for me, but these are really great standards. Hydrangeas, there's so many hydrangeas. I can't grow all the hydrangeas here in Michigan, so I grow the ones that bloom on old wood. Limelight Prime, Invincible Spirit 2, I really like that one. It's an earlier blooming one. And then the Quickfire, it's more of like a lacy one, or there's other lace cap ones. I have added more hydrangeas. I added over 100 in 2024, but this is what I started with. These are some real tried and true. Limelights, I mean, one limelight hydrangea can give you 50 or 60 stems when it's mature, or really even more than that. Symphocarpus, I have the Coral Bells, Magical Ruby Falls. This one's from Farmer Bailey. He has multiple varieties. Anything that Farmer Bailey sells is good for cutting and cut flower purposes. If you're buying from a bigger nursery like Spring Meadow Nursery, just be really careful. They do have a cut flower guide actually, which is really helpful, but not all the varieties are going to be good for cutting, meaning they might be dwarf varieties that are really short, so just be aware of that. Quince, I have the Double Take series. There's multiple colors within that. I think I have 2 of the colors, the peach and the white. Viburnum, you can't go wrong with viburnum. I have glitters and glows. There's like a Korean spice. There's so many different varieties. So I would just pick 1 or 2. And then the mock orange, this Philadelphus. There's an Illuminati series from Spring Meadow, which is what I have. And there's like Illuminati Spice, Sparks, and Spires. And the one is variegated foliage. The one is like tall spires, which I'm really excited about. So they're all just a little different. So what I would do is, like, if you're picking 10 to make a minimum, which in spring meadow, 16 plants is a tray, and they're 4-inch pots, so they're very small, but they grow pretty quickly and pretty well. What I would do, so we're talking about math here, I had this calculated out, like if you're going to have a square that's like 50 by 50, so I like to plant them in rows. So like, you know, you're going to put plants here, and then you're going to have a pathway and then another row, and I plant them in single rows for woody shrubs. So I usually have, for these woodies, there's a few exceptions. Like I'm not saying in general every single woody. If you're planting willow, you know, don't follow this spacing. And like even like your limelights are really big, but I have limelight hydrangeas that I space 3 feet apart. There's tons of space between them because you're using them for cut flower purposes. So all of the landscaping advice or how you grow them in your garden, that's not how you're going to grow them for cut flowers. I grow them in single rows, and then I have a pathway, and I usually have 4 feet. So from like plant to plant, there's 4 feet. And then in the row, you can do 18-inch spacing or 24-inch spacing. I know that's really, really close. I know it's really close. And you're going to be like, no, we can't grow them that close together. Well, I have a thriving patch of woodies that are planted 18 inches apart. Smokebush, ninebark. Actually, my smokebush might be 24 inches, but almost everything is 18 inches. Symphocarpus, viburnum, spirea, big shrubs, lilacs, which are not on this list, but that's a story for another day. They're so close together, and people freak out about it. And I get it, but it really does work. I don't deal with a lot of powdery mildew issues. First of all, I have powdery mildew resistant plants. So these newer varieties have powdery mildew resistance, so that's really helpful. And I also don't live in a super humid location. So if you're living in the south in a really different growing zone than me, you might want to give them a little more space if you feel comfortable with that, or some of these might not grow the greatest for you. Like ninebark, I don't think grows really great in super humid areas. So that's okay. Grow something else that's good for your climate. This is what works for me in my climate. And a lot of the stuff that you can grow in the south, like I can't grow because it's not hardy to me. And there's a few things I really wish I could grow, but I just have to lean into what works in your area. Like I can't change the climate, you know, of West Michigan, but I can grow plants that love it here. So you're going to space them 18 inches apart. So if you have 50 feet, this might not be a perfect square, okay, but that's kind of what I'm going with. So if you have 50 feet here and you have 50 feet here, so you're having 50-foot beds, and obviously you can adapt this to whatever your space allows. But if you're spacing them 24 inches apart, I know this is really hard math, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 50 feet. This is pretty simple, but we're going to multiply this by inches. So we're going to multiply it by 12 inches. This is going to give us 600 inches. I'm sorry if you're using the metric system. I don't know how many meters this is, or centimeters. This is what my brain works in. So sorry if you're in other countries. Okay, you're going to divide this by 24 inches because we're spacing them 24 inches apart. Okay, so this is going to equal, this is very easy math, but this is going to equal 25 plants per row. If you have 50 feet here and you're having them be 4 feet apart, the rows, you're going to get 12 rows. Okay, so you're spacing them 4 feet apart. So you're going to get 12 rows because you're 4 feet apart. You're going to divide it by 50 feet. So you're going to get 12 rows. We got 25 plants per row and we have 12 rows. So we're going to go 12 times 25 is going to equal 300 woody plants. In this 50 by 50 spacing, you can fit 300 woody plants. Okay, so in my illustration, you can choose to do 50, or when I first started, I got 160 plants, which is the minimum, 10 trays from Spring Meadow times 16. So 160. I know you're all shocked at how great my math skills are. You know, you could cut this in half, basically. So just to show you how small of a space you need to grow a lot of woody shrubs. Okay, so that's kind of like how many you're going to plant. You're going to plant them 24 inches apart. You're going to have 4-foot rows. People always ask me, what do I do about weeds and setting up the row? Well, I've actually done different things depending on where it's located. In my farm, I planted a lot of the woodies in a very wet, boggy area, and I did not put landscape fabric down the pathways because it would have totally eroded my soil. So I put cover crop there. But in the back of my first area, I put 3-foot landscape fabric, and I just did them in strips. And then I have like a 1-foot opening here, and I just plop the plants in. And that's worked really great. And it's also not like, it doesn't have rivers running through it every spring, so it's possible for me to use landscape fabric up there. So the plants themselves are not like in landscape fabric, but they have landscape fabric down the pathways, and that's worked really well. And then I just put wood chips in between the plants, and now they're so big, there's hardly any weeds at all. We'll put in footage here of what mine looks like right now with the landscape fabric, because it's super cool to see it right now in the spring. And so we've trimmed it and pruned it, which if you want to know how we prune it, we do have a video on that. But in late winter, we prune it and get it all ready for new growth, so you can see what it looks like. So if you don't think it works, you can see what it looks like right now. We'll put in what it looks like in the summer, and how it works. Like, it really works really, really well. The spacing works super great, and the plants are really healthy and that kind of a thing. So one question is, how many stems are you going to get from this? Well, that is going to depend on the plant. And this is a long-term investment. This is not like you plant some cosmos seeds and you're going to sell, a couple hundred stems from that season. That's not what's going to happen here. Now, I will say that if you want a quick win, I think snowberries are one of the fastest growing woody shrubs that I've ever experienced or ever grown. I planted this in August of 2022, and I harvested and sold like 15 bunches off of it that next year, like almost 10 stems per plant. I was completely shocked that I would have a cash crop like, the next year. Now, I will say I've also planted Symphocarpus that I've gotten from Farmer Bailey, and I've planted it in the spring from bare roots. His bare roots came in the spring, and you're not going to really get a crop off of them. You'll see the plant, you might be able to harvest a couple of stems, but you're not going to get a significant crop off of it. But then in the next year, you will, like the next following year. So it needs to go through a winter, I guess. At least that's been my experience. And then, I sell hundreds of stems now. I think I have 4 different varieties of snowberries now, which I really love them. And I have pinks and whites. They bloom or they mature at a couple different times. So that's really, really great. Extending your harvest, extending your availability of this crop. Things like smokebush are going to take basically a whole year, and then they'll give you a couple of stems, usually after a year. So into the second year, I get like 5 or 6 stems per plant, which is going to actually cover like what you invested into it typically. Then the next year they'll produce more. I think last year I was harvesting between 20 and 30 stems per plant in my 3rd year. The 9bark, it depends on the variety. These tiny ones pump out, I don't even know. I couldn't count. So many stems. These have a lot too, maybe 20 per plant for summer wine and ginger wine. And there's other varieties as well. Hydrangeas, depends on the hydrangea. I've already talked about the limelights can produce like 50 stems a plant on a mature plant. Now that is a plant. I'm talking about a plant that's 4 or 5 years old. So it's not going to do that for you immediately. Funny story, my neighbors that live right there have a lot of mature limelights. They moved in when we did, and they planted them. So they're like 8 years old, and they have them on the one side of their house that they never see. And they told me I could harvest them, and I sold like 150 stems from their 3 or 4 of their limelight plants. And then she just told me that they're going to take out that one little section of their landscaping because they can't keep up with it, and they want to focus on the areas that they can see. And she said, would you like my limelights? Would you like any of this stuff? And I was like, yes, I'll take all your hydrangeas, like 4 mature limelights. So I'm going to transplant them. I think there's 4, maybe 5. Anyway, it's pretty funny, but I was like, yeah, I'll take your hydrangeas. I sold them all last year. So funny story. Okay, we talked about Symphocarpus, but yeah, so hydrangeas, it just kind of depends. But these invincible spirits, so the second year I harvested maybe 4 or 5 blooms off of them per plant. And then now, they're just producing, they're the same thing, like 30, 40 stems a plant. Okay, we already talked about the snowberries. Quince, okay, I'm still waiting for my quince. Quince is a little bit slow growing. It blooms on old wood. It's 2 years old. Because I didn't plant quince in 2022. I planted it in 2024. And it's already up for its bloom window right now. Like if I would be harvesting it this year, I would have harvested it already. And I did some research, and I decided to wait till the plants are a little bigger and more robust. So yeah, you're looking at a 3-year lag time before you'll ever harvest your first stems off of this. But like I said, this will last decades. It's a retirement plan. This is a long-term game. This is not a quick win. This is thinking long-term. Okay, viburnum. There's so many different kinds of varieties of viburnum. This was the first one I got, Glitters and Glows. It's grown for the berries. So I'm actually still waiting to harvest off of. Well, okay, that's not true. Last year, so this is from a 2022 planting of viburnum. Last year, I think I harvested like 4 bunches. So in the third year, I harvested like 30 stems. I'm hoping it'll grow this year. But I was actually talking with someone, and I think there might be some other better varieties that are older, that are more quick growing. I'm not sure. But I have a couple other varieties of viburnums as well. But I have almost sold no viburnum. But I know that once it's established, it will be really great. And the plants look super healthy. They haven't died. Like, they look great, but it's a long-term thing here. Mock orange, again, I didn't plant this in 2022. This was a 2024 planting. I'm still waiting on it. I don't really think I'll be able to harvest off of it this spring. Like, it would be in June. The plants look pretty good, but I doubt that I'll be able to harvest off of it. So some of these are kind of quicker wins. So I think snowberries are a great one to start with because they're so quick to see a return on. And then the smokebush and ninebark are not too long. You don't have to wait too long, at least to get some stems. And then, like I said, within 3 years, you're getting a really robust crop from them. And then these are a little bit of a longer wait time. Hydrangeas are kind of midpoint as well. They will start to give you some good stems. So, like, what is the potential of this? Well, these things sell for a pretty decent amount, at least most of them. Like quince stems, I don't even know how much, but flowering branches are like worth a lot. Hydrangeas are like $2.50 a stem, $2.75 a stem. So off of a hydrangea that's going to produce 50 stems, I think I charge $2.50 for large blooms and $1.75 a stem for like smaller, shorter side shoots. Yeah, so let's do the math. If you're going to have a hydrangea, let's just sample hydrangeas and ninebark, okay? So let's just take 2 examples here. So if you have a hydrangea, you're going to have 1 plant. Sorry, I messed up that L. So let's say you get 30 stems that are nice and big ones, and you sell them for $2.50 a stem. That's $75 a plant. This is pretty conservative. You're probably also going to sell 15 side shoots that are $1.75 a stem off of that same mature plant. But let's just say that that's what you get. So you have $75 per plant, and let's say you have 16 plants, because we're just kind of using the spring meadow example here, where you have 16 minimum. That's $1,200 per season for a mature hydrangea from 16 plants. Yeah, I mean, that this is the possibility here. This is how we got to be thinking about. Yes, these are long-term investments, but within 2 years or maybe 3 years to have this many stems on the hydrangea, you're going to be making this much money off of your planting. Okay, let's take smokebush. 1 plant, let's say you get 20 stems. This is pretty conservative. Like, this is a pretty young smokebush plant. You're going to sell them for $1.50 a stem, which I actually sell them in 2 different grades, but let's just keep it simple. You're going to get $30 a plant. Multiply that by 16, so you're going to have $480 from that plant, or from that planting of 16. Like I said, this is pretty conservative. I also sell them at 2 different sizes. So I sell like a shorter, like a 24-inch, or like 18 to 24, and then 36 and 36 to 40. I don't just keep going because I can't transport stuff that big. But yeah, so this is a really, really conservative number for the smokebush. These are also very easy to grow, very easy to transplant. They're really rock solid plants. This is like how I think it's helpful to start thinking about a investment into woodies, because then you're not going to replant this. You're going to trim it and you're going to prune it, and you're going to fertilize it and water. Your hydrangeas need water. So, like, people ask if I irrigate my woodies, and I don't irrigate most of them. But the hydrangeas, I put all in this one area, and I have tubing down there, and I irrigate them because hydrangeas need water. They need water. They're like water vessel. I'm pretty sure it's like the Latin name for the hydrangea. So this is like the woody math, and how I think it's helpful to really think about growing woody shrubs. This is why I love woody shrubs, why I like talking about them, and I know a lot of you guys like me talking about them. I just want to say one thing about Farmer Bailey. So those are kind of the 2 sources that I've really leaned into for growing woody shrubs, is Spring Meadow and Farmer Bailey. Farmer Bailey's coming out with some really great things that are really hard to get in other places, and he sells them in 10 bunches of 10, and usually you only have to order like 3 or something, so it really is accessible in smaller amounts. He doesn't have every variety, so like Spring Meadow has certain varieties, and he'll have different varieties. He also has some really cool new hydrangea varieties, most of which I can't grow in Michigan, but they look really cool. So those are like the two places I would really lean in. One thing I feel like is lacking in my plan is lilacs. I would love to have more lilacs. I bought a variety of lilacs from Spring Meadow called a bloomerang. I do not love it. The plants are beautiful and big and gorgeous. I just don't think that they're great for cut flowers. Like the other varieties that are older, the French varieties, they have much bigger blooms, and I don't love them. So that's why lilac's not on this list. But I personally would actually love to have lilacs. And I was just hunting for some the other day. I've emailed with Farmer Bailey about lilacs because he's talked about them. I haven't emailed him like recently, but maybe last year for sure. And they're working on getting lilac varieties, but it's getting very difficult to get them in from the Netherlands. So anyway, that's something I hope that's new and exciting that will be coming soon, is some better lilac varieties for cut flowers, because they're getting really hard to find. I was just looking on some different websites, and basically I really don't know where to get good wholesale lilac. And I've seen people talk about it in the ASCFG, which is the Association of Specialty Cut Flowers. And it's just kind of like, well, there was this nursery and it's closing, or it's so hard to get. They have such limited quantities. So if you know of a good like lilac place to get lilacs, I'd love to know. Anyway, so that's kind of the woody math. I hope that you found this helpful, and be careful because I sharpened my clippers and I was cutting GM yesterday, and I like sliced my hand. I almost always wear gloves, and I didn't yesterday. I really sliced my hand. Anyway, so be careful out there. It's spring, and careful with your sharp clippers. You might slice your hand. But yeah, I hope that you found this helpful. And don't forget to check out those free tips for selling flowers to florists. And if you have questions about this, which I'm sure you probably will, this is kind of the thing that I'm hoping to really dig into in my membership, is like really getting into some of these things. And people have asked me before for like resources, like lists with your favorite varieties. And so those kinds of resources are things that I'm planning on building out in my membership. So if you enjoy content like this, be on the lookout for that. And please let me know if you found this helpful, if you have any questions. Okay, and then if you're wondering about my sweatshirt, just like really briefly, my husband just bought me this sweatshirt from Ukraine. He was just in Ukraine. A lot of you know that my husband was out of town. He was actually out of the country. He went to Ukraine and he bought me this Polish pottery mug. I love Polish pottery. He bought me this too. He was gone for 10 days. He went with some other gentlemen from our church and denomination, and they went to support and encourage some of the churches that we have connections with in Ukraine. And it was a really great trip, and I'm really thankful that he's home. And I know that some of you watch from Ukraine, and I just want you to know that our family has a really big heart for Ukraine. My husband, it's kind of a long story, but he had a lot of connections growing up with Ukraine. He's from San Francisco, and he grew up near a lot of Ukrainians there in San Francisco. And so his family has had a lot of connection with them. So if you're curious about my shirt, that's where it's from. And if you are from Ukraine or in Ukraine, please know that you are in our prayers every day. We pray for you, and you're really in our hearts. And my husband went all the way to Kharkiv, if you're familiar with that. So it wasn't exactly like the safest place to go. We just trusted that the Lord would bring him home safely. And if he didn't, that was in his, sovereign plan. And so I'm thankful my husband is home. He brought me this sweatshirt. Yeah. So just like side note, personal update, I guess, if you're curious about that, a little bit of what was going on in our family. And it was crazy to have him gone in April. And now I'm thankful he's home and he does a lot for our farm. So I'll see you next time.